Hey, good Monday evening to you. How is everyone? It is good to see you. It is good to be seen by you. I am Bill Sylvie, the Dungeon Delver. How the heck are you? I hope you're doing exceptionally well. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic time. I'm having a pretty darn good one myself, and that is an awesome thing. But more to the point, I hope you're awesome. I hope everyone out there is awesome and having a good Monday. Can you believe it? Can you guys believe it? Wizards and Hasbro went 72 whole hours. Almost. Day's not over yet. Almost 72 hours without screwing something up. Without pissing off investors, without pissing off their customer base, without seriously angering lots and lots and lots and lots of people. And that's pretty astounding. Thank you, Luther. This is the Magnum PI Bird of Paradise. I got this for Christmas one year, and I absolutely love it. I will be rocking this at happy hour at GaryCon. Because I'm going to GaryCon in no small part because of you guys, which I still can't get my head around. It is Magnum PI, Danny. This is one of the pattern shirts. This is of the pattern. But anyway, yeah, you guys, if you missed all last week and you're new here, first of all, welcome. It's good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for subscribing. Over the course of the last few days, I saw this like rise up over the weekend. We're like 42-14 or something like that on subs, which I can't even get my head around that. If we go to the channel analytics and we look, 4213 was the total number of subscribers to the channel. I need to do a Gary. Oh, yeah. I'm going to shoot video. I'm going to do some mini micro live streams at GaryCon. I will talk to people who have a minute. I don't want to pin anyone down and like, hey, I'm trying to run a game here. Hi. Yeah. I don't want to be like that. But yeah, I'll be there. I only put on my Hawaiian shirt to warn others that I'm a dangerous party animal. There you go. This is the, I like to call this the, how much cocaine did you want? Shirt. So I've seen a few different D&D Hawaiian shirts, GM Vand and hello. Is that Vand or is that Vond? I can't tell. I don't have great monitors here. This one on the right is probably the worst LCD monitor, worst modern LCD monitor I've ever used. Let me clarify that. Back in the day when I worked IT for a big company called Star Systems, this was pre-year 2000, we had one or two executives that, let me tell you what, greetings, RPG Grandma. Good to see you. Welcome. But if you've ever worked corporate IT, you know that the most dangerous people in your office, particularly in the 90s and early 2000s, were the non-IT people. If you'd go into their office or cubicle and they got a copy of like PC Week magazine. Those people were dangerous because they're the ones that thought that they could fix their computers. Not the ones who had a little like, hey, I took time to write down the error message. I mean, the people, like, you'd walk past their cube and they'd have their monitor off of their little desktop PC rig and the top open and they're poking around inside it. And you're like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. But anyway, to go back to monitors, back in the mid-late 90s, LCD monitors then, they were about this thick from the front bezel to the back. The biggest screens you could get were like 17 inches, and they cost like $2,400. And they were smeary as all get out. Oh my gosh. Think about how laptop screens looked back then. I mean, they were terrible. They were just terrible. Terrible monitors. And we had one or two execs, and that's what they wanted. They wanted this slick, futuristic, because we were a high-tech company, and they wanted a high-tech display. And they got them, and they would forever ask us how to make the displays brighter, how to make the displays clearer, how to make them sharper. And we would jokingly tell them, replace it with a ViewSonic 21-inch CRT. They, even though they were jokes, they didn't appreciate that. They didn't appreciate being told that they had backed the wrong horse. This monitor here, as awful as it is, would have been light years. Like, this would have been alien tech back then. But then I'm also talking about approaching 23 years ago. This is as close as I get. Anyway, the reason I started ranting about that was, I am not sure if that says GM Vand or GM Vond. And we were talking about Hawaiian shirts, D&D Hawaiian shirts. But anyway, so we have a week coming up. We have a week of stuff. Now, like I said, somehow, some way, Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast have managed to not screw something up in the last 72 hours. Today was a bank holiday, and Saturday and Sunday are weekends. So tomorrow is technically a corporate Monday. Let's see what happens. And to that, I want to address a couple of things that have come up. I've seen this in the comments a few times. And there's like this huge audience. It's like the Macintosh guys and the 8-bit Apple guys. There's the people that watch my video for short content and leave comments. And then there's you guys in the chat who watch my live streams. And I believe there's a pretty good amount of Venn diagram crossover, because a lot of you folks I recognize now, like you come and you watch the live streams, and I recognize your usernames from the comments now popping up in the chat, which is just wonderful. But hopefully you're sitting there and you're being quiet and you're watching and you're listening and you're wondering, what is he going to say? So to that end, a lot of people have said that they came to the channel because I was the only person like putting the news out there. Well, first of all, that's not true. There's lots of people in the tabletop role-playing game community who have been talking about what Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast have gotten up to, and their blunders and their offenses and everything else. It's not just me, but thank you for choosing me. I was just literally like 10 minutes before I got on with you guys. My buddies over at Gods and Monsters were streaming on Facebook, and I said hello in the live stream comments, and Todd from Gods and Monsters, starts talking about how he has seen my videos popping up on his feed. Now, I don't know if Todd is subscribed to me on YouTube, but he's been getting a lot of his info from my videos. So they have kind of blown up. Greetings, Longshot. Love your Marvel comic, by the way. That was an awesome comic. Okay, so it is Vand. Excellent. No, Luther, I need the tank top, the so-called wife beater is what I need under this. But anyway, my luxurious, you guys want to see my luxurious chest hair. But anyway, and that was like a shocker, because again, I don't know if Todd is actually subscribed to my YouTube channel, but he was like, Bill's saying that, and he's had a handle on this, and and just kind of, I get demonetized if I play Miami Vice Music Proto. Mark Hoover, greetings. So yeah, it's always kind of unreal to hear people or see comments from people saying, you're keeping us informed. You're the news. You've got your finger on this, Now, another thing, this came up, and I was talking about this on the Discord channel. And different Todd, Tonka. But there was a guy, and sir or madam, please don't take this as an insult. But someone came in and started ranting in the comments, like this whole short one comment. I shouldn't say ranting. They ranted in a comment about how we D&D players, like everything that was done to us was a distraction from the most important thing, which is Magic the Gathering. And it came off to me like, hey, shut up, you D&D players. Magic is more important. And the person was complaining that they were constantly looking for information about what was going on with Magic, and saw my videos just always popping up. I'm not sorry that my videos are popping up on your feed. I'm not. It is greatly helpful to me to know that Wizards of the Coast, that YouTube promotes my stuff. This is not a Magic the Gathering channel. I don't play. I don't know how to play. I know some cards they print tiny numbers of, and they're really powerful and game breaking and that sort of thing, and they become very valuable, like a Babe Ruth rookie card or a Spider-Man comic book. They're rare and they're hard to find, and so on and etc. That's it. I have just told you everything I know about Magic the Gathering from a gameplay table eye view. But this is not a Magic the Gathering channel. I'm not saying that I hate it. Go away. I talk about D&D. It's what I do. If you come to me and say D&D is not important, the OGL is not important, nothing changed, all that was just a smokescreen and a distraction from the real important thing, my pushback will be palpable. I don't go ranting to Magic the Gathering players that their game's not important, that their game doesn't matter, the D&D, if I was going to take that tack, and I'm not, I would say Dungeons and Dragons existed for 2 decades before Magic the Gathering. That Magic the Gathering was this close to being bought and buried by TSR. That Magic the Gathering is just an ATM for Wizards of the Coast to pump money into more important products and projects like Dungeons and Dragons, that Hasbro views it only as a money bin that they can occasionally take cash out of and stuff in their pockets, that it doesn't matter to them that the next batch of cards could literally just be crayon scribbles on a piece of construction paper, and if you Magic players bought it, they'd be just as happy with beautiful artwork and balanced rules. But I'm not going to say that, because that would be rude and that would be nasty. And I'm not going to do that. So, person who left that comment, go in peace. I hope you stay subscribed. I hope maybe one day you embrace tabletop role-playing games. And there is more than a little bit of crossover. They have crossed the streams a little bit at Wizards of the Coast. One of the greatest artists for Dungeons and Dragons ever is a gentleman by the name of Errol Otis. His artwork has graced the basic and expert sets. The cover of Deities and Demigods is by Errol Otis, and that's just touching on his tiny amount of his D&D output. But Errol, at Wizards' behest, did some Magic the Gathering cards, and they're kind of neat, and I wouldn't hate to have the set, because the play side of the card, because I guess there's like the Magic logo on one side, and then there's all the data you need, look like old school modules that he would have done for TSR back in the 70s and 80s. And I think that is really spiffy. I think that's really neato. Correct me if I'm wrong, 5e aficionados, but did Wizards of the Coast not release a D&D campaign setting in the Magic the Gathering universe? Yes, Errol did start. I was just talking to my daughter about Errol and StarCon. And RPG Grandma, you're correct. Wizards of the Coast has been hurting everyone. This is something that I've been talking about. When our voices were united starting in January, and I don't care what lies they told their investors, I don't care how black-pilled you want to get about what Wizards of the Coast will really do. When our voices were united, when we set aside, I hate you old grognards. Oh, I can't stand you young 5e punks. When we set aside all of that crap, we dragged them kicking and screaming out of their corporate tower and made them stop. Whether they'll change remains to be seen, but we made them stop. We held their feet to the fire. We did that. Now, rushing in and saying things like, white people can't leave this hobby fast enough. Rushing in and going after old editions of the game, rushing in and arguing with people about whether or not that you think D&D is not important and that Magic is the only thing that matters or should matter, is playing right into their hands. We weaponized nerd rage, guys. We stormed the beaches. We rolled them back to their starting points, to their jump-off points. And arguing at me, who's, I'm just a simple reporter of the things that I find out, that, I'm not important, or you're annoyed by my content, and so on and etc., serves one group. It serves one group, and that group is Wizards of the Coast. That group is Hasbro. If you want to hand it all back to them because we're busy yelling at each other over who would win in a fight, Superman or Batman, or Spider-Man or Wolverine, rethink your position, because you're not going to get a gold star and a trip to the prize box from Hasbro for helping drive wedges between the community again. I don't like 5th edition D&D all that much. I really dislike 4th edition. 3rd edition and 3.5, I'm indifferent to. Heck, I don't even like 2nd edition AD&D, really. But none of that's important. If you come to me and you say, I like D&D, I just bought the starter set, the first words out of my mouth are not going to be, well, you're doing it wrong, kid. And I slap it out of your hands and shove a mimeographed copy of OD&D into them instead. That serves no one except Hasbro corporate. So take your comments that you're pissed off at me because I posted up information that people were really, really desperate for. Take your comments that you hate RPGs and magic is the only way. And I got to stop and think here, a little sidebar, a little gray box. You remember that in magazines, like in the middle of the article? It's like particularly a tech magazine, they'd put in a little 75 or 100 word gray box off to the left. I can't help but wonder if that guy doesn't even give a damn about playing Magic at all. He's just one of those dudes who buys cards as an investment, because that's a whole thing. That much I know. That's a whole thing. But take that attitude and pound sand and come back when you realize that this hobby is stronger when we're together, not when we're yelling at each other. I just wanted to get that off my chest. RPG Grandma, of course, embrace our love for RPG games in general and understand we can't do it all. Support. We can't do it all. Support, don't tear each other down. Dazzling Cat, hello. Lots of new names in the chat tonight. Longshot says RPG flavors like ice cream. Pick the flavor combos you like and eat it any way you want. Absolutely. GM Van. Not only did we win, they won too. Jimmy Invictus. Don't shoot. Let him burn like Saving Private Ryan. Oof. Brutal. Brutal. Mark Hyde says, I can't really afford OG books at the moment with their prices, and now I can't support WotC and buying the pod of the books. They don't need more of my money. Reach out, Mark. If you love first edition AD&D and you want the books, reach out to people who love AD&D and are willing to part with the books for a reasonable price. Yes, if you go on eBay looking right now, thanks to Hasbro, stuff is insanely overpriced. Oh, Uncle Brat, thank you for the super. Thank you for the super, Uncle Brat. The idea is the game, not the collection. Very, very wise statement from Uncle Brat. Thank you. No, I understand, Mark. I understand completely. Well, that's a fine question, Jimmy. That's a fine question. What are some house rules, if any, I use in my AD&D campaigns? I'm going out like a Viking, by the way, collecting. I want it all piled up around me and burned so nobody gets it after I die. Oh, Lord, RPG Grandma. Oh, my gosh. I hope you're okay. And I hope RPG Grandma's okay. RPG Grandma took time to type BRB medical emergency. I mean, if I had a legitimate medical emergency, I would just be like, yeah. You guys would be like, this stream would go for however long. I wouldn't stop if it was a serious medical emergency. Yeah, we all hope you're okay. Okay, let's get back to Jimmy Invictus's question. What house rules? Okay, the biggest house rules. I follow Gygaxian AD&D. I don't do weapons versus armor type. I do use weapon speed. I have a fairly complex, but apparently not true to how it's supposed to be played, take on the initiative system in AD&D, which can be a bear to get one's head around. Death and dying is probably the biggest one, because I do tweak it a little bit. So there's a few different approaches to death and dying. First, there is 0 equals dead, which is how OD&D does it, basic D&D. AD&D, it's a little different. At 0 hit points, or optionally as low as -3, the character is unconscious. If they're hit with an attack that takes them below -3 hit points in a single swoop, let's say you got 5 hit points and you get hit with 10 points of damage, you are killed outright. That is by the book, and I follow that also. But I don't do the optionally as low as -3 is unconscious. Oh, that's very true, collecting. So, I implemented, well, here's the thing. So let's, at 0 to as low as -3, you are then bleeding out. When you hit -10 and you haven't received aid, someone hasn't bound your wounds. Oh, thank goodness, RPG Grandma. When you receive all the way down to whatever -10, as you bleed out, your wounds can be bound. When you get to -10, you are dead. And then it's raise dead, reincarnate, resurrection has to be put on you to bring you back. The minor tweak I put in there, and I thought this was so insignificant, and I'll explain why. Was At 0 hit points, you are unconscious but not bleeding out. Now, here's the thing about going into negative hits in AD&D. You are comatose at that point. It takes you D6 turns to come out of that coma. At that point, I just rolled the D6, 4 turns, 40 minutes. And magical healing doesn't bring you out of that coma because you have gone to death's door. 40 minutes passes. Now you're conscious. Now they start hitting you with cure critical wounds. They start dumping potions of healing down your throat. They get you back up to 24, 25 hit points. You were still at death's door. It requires a minimum of a week's rest before you are ready to adventure again. And again, that starts at 0 hits. I implemented a house rule whereby if you were reduced to exactly 0 hit points, you are unconscious, you are not bleeding out, and healing that gets you back on your feet gets you back up and into the fight and exploration and that sort of thing. I implemented that rule because I thought when I introduced that rule that being brought to 0 hits exactly was a fairly rare occurrence. What I have found out in the decade plus since I implemented that house rule is it is incredibly common to be dropped to exactly 0 hits. And no, I'm not just going by my players taking their word on it. I mean, people dropped, like I'm tracking their hit points while they're tracking their hit points. I'm at 0. I fall out. Now, if a monster is intelligent or just mean and continues to hit them, remember, they're hitting automatically for double damage. So if a monster continues to hack at them, unless that monster only does 1 to 2 points of damage, they will die. They will be dropped to less than -3 with a single blow. So it kind of balances out. And so that is my biggest house rule. Otherwise, for the most part, I hew to the rules. Now, one other slight inconsistency is identify. In AD&D, you don't just know that a sword is magical. You might suspect it's magical. Holding aloft a magic sword or a magic dagger will cause it to glow, like Sting, the weapon from The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, not the pop musician. RPG Grandma, if you've got AD&D First Edition, Osric is all right. But if you have and understand AD&D, it doesn't add anything to your knowledge. That's just, and I say that knowing the people who wrote Osric and having done a tiny, tiny little bit of work in Osric myself. Just 3 monsters I ported over from the SRD to Osric. So you hold up a magic sword, a magic dagger, it glows, probably an actual magic item. Beyond that, beyond the DM being descriptive, rings, cloaks, boots, armor, weapon, most other weapons, librams, tomes, books, magical instruments, bracers, bracelets, crowns, a host of miscellaneous items. There's no telling beyond casting detect magic, and you know that it's magical. So buy the book AD&D. If you find the magic shield in the Dragon Horde, when you pick it up, the minute you pick it up, a timer starts. And you have a set amount of hours before the psychic impressions of that magic item, they all blend together. And to correctly identify what the item is requires you to go to a sage or to a bard, which is fine if you have a bard in the party, to correctly identify the item. I'll get to you in just a second, Danny. Now, I modified that slightly. Party finds, say, a dragon's horde. You know, they deal with the dragon. They cast detect magic. Okay, the shield, the sword, there's a box that's radiating magic, there's an amulet, and then there's a ring. Okay. My house rule is if you don't start using the item, if you just find it and throw it into your bag of holding or your backpack or whatever, you don't put it on, you don't wield it, whatever, you don't try and use it, the timer doesn't start. You draw the sword, getting ready to use it in combat, the timer starts. Otherwise, you just keep it, and it can then be identified when the party has a chance to identify. So that is my my house rule on identify. How do I handle damage to a weapon being targeted by an attack? It depends on the attack, and it depends on what it's doing. Fireball. Fail your saving throw. You have your longsword +1. Evil wizard throws a fireball. You fail your saving throw, but somehow you're not crisped because the evil wizard was only 5th level. He just got fireball. He throws 5d6. He rolls a 4, 3 1s, and a 5. That's 12. You take 12 points of damage. Ow. But hey, you had 28 hit points. You're fine. But you still failed it. For every item you have, I will make a saving throw versus magical fire for all your stuff. If you make your saving throw in the overall, I don't. Crushing blow. There's a whole section in the Dungeon Master's Guide that covers saving throw for items versus various effects. That's how I do it. If they fail it, they're destroyed. Look at what rust monsters, oozes, puddings, and so forth can also do. So I hope that answers your question, Danny. I hope that answers your question, and I hope you carry that forward. You're quite welcome. But yeah, I just go through, and I mean, you know, a book's gonna do okay against a save versus crushing blow. Magical fire, not so much. I think it requires like a 19 or a 20 to a book to save versus magical fire. Found Gamma World today. I'm sorry about the loss of your RPG library, RPG Grandma. That's terrible, but it sounds like you've really struck gold. Now I'm going to say something that it's going to be a little controversial. But I hope you guys will understand where I'm coming from. Drive-Thru-RPG offers the same print-on-demand deals that Wizards of the Coast does. Wizards of the Coast, if you open up D&D, well, the DM's Guild, and drill down to the AD&D section and open up Drive-Thru-RPG and drill down to the AD&D section and look at them, you'll note that they're identical. To the best of my knowledge, Wizards of the Coast is simply piggybacking off of Drive-Thru-RPG or vice versa. The PDFs are exactly identical. If you want classic AD&D and you want classic AD&D in print and you want classic AD&D in print and you don't want to pay an arm and a leg for it, you can go to Drive-Thru-RPG. I understand that a lot of people have a problem with Drive-Thru-RPG. I completely get it. I'm not saying I support them. I'm not saying I support some of their practices and attitudes. I'm just saying that's something you can do. If by other means, greetings, I'm going to mutilate this. I'm sorry, Piadar Ruane. That is news to me, Mark. But to continue my thought, if you acquire copies of the AD&D books, however you do it, most print shops, like I promise you can find a local print shop that if you go to them and you talk to them and you tell them what you want, like, yeah, look, here's the image. Can you give me a hard-bound copy of this? Yes, they'll do it. Not for free. Not for free. Not by any, pay them, obviously. If you don't want to give your money to Wizards, that is an option. In fact, I recommend it. However you get your PDFs, over many of the so-called D&D clones. Because I think there's some black magic in these books. In the best way. I think there's an amazing wealth of knowledge and information in classic AD&D books that is not there in Osric, in Swords and Wizardry, in Old School Essentials, in White Box, in For Gold and Glory, and whatever. There is a verve to Gary's cadence that rises above mere instructions. And it wasn't there in all classic D&D products because Gary didn't pen those. I said this the other night, and I certainly hope I don't lose any subscribers when I say this. I hope nobody storms out angrily. But, like, people are like, oh man, the RC is the best. The Rule Cyclopedia is the best D&D book ever written. Really? Because it's like fantasy stereo instructions to me. It's so dull. I'm sorry. It's just dull reading to me. And a book has to be engaging. You can say what you want about the rules, about how many time that, Mike Pondsmith completely missed the board and hit the wall with Cyberpunk. Mike Pondsmith freaking loves what he writes, and you can tell. The fiction that he crams into his book, the little jokes. Mike Pondsmith is kind of a latter-day Gary Gygax in how he approached writing are Telsorian rules. Okay? Twilight 2000, Frank Chadwick and Mark Miller and the gang at GDW. They wrote, like, read the Twilight 2000 rules and tell me that doesn't reek of dread and desperation in the way they're describing how the world has gone to hell. Actual literal hell for people in cities near nuke sites. Oh no. Oh, Peter. Oh no. We're cool. And that ultimately is what makes all the difference, and it's what is missed so much in so many retro clones. Moby says, small potatoes. I read a lot of awesome books that were a little dry. So, you know, even if you're like, you know, look, I don't completely understand how initiative is supposed to work. I don't understand why that, you know, I had to go like find tucked off in a corner of the Dungeon Master's Guide the matter of you got to wear a helm with your armor. And Osric is just an easier read. That's fine. But have both. Okay? Have both. Luther says, you think I need to become an old-style monk and spend my days hand copying the Dungeon Master's Guide over and over? Maybe not. See, Mobius, I would take the Dungeon Master's Guide. I think it's a little heavier. You can just bonk them on the head. Just. But anyway, so that's my polemic, and to be sure, that's not like I'm not taking a stand against Osric or Swords and Wizardry or OSE or any of those fine games, and I completely understand. You might just want a physical copy in your hand. Right then, you don't want to faff about. All right, you don't want to faff about. You want box in hand. You want to be ready to play right then. You don't want to go track down some book that smells of damp and vaguely of cigarette smoke and has 50-year-old pizza stains inside, and then pay $75 or $100 for the privilege. I completely get you. There's plenty of room at this day. You know what the beauty of the RPG playing table is? It is infinite in size. It is infinite in size, and there is room at it for everyone except Fatal and possibly Rehoa. Does anyone remember the Fatal system? I remember them trying to the two authors of it. Oh my gosh. No, we're not going to talk about that. People are mad at Drive-Thru-RPG because I have only scratched the surface of this, but apparently people are big. There are some people who are big mad at Drive-Thru-RPG for their views on what is considered acceptable content at Drive-Thru-RPG. And their contention is not that Drive-Thru-RPG says, don't put these things in your product or we'll take it down, but that it is capriciously and not even across the board applied. There's a couple of authors who apparently got all their stuff yanked this past weekend, and they had a very ugly private blow up that they shared with people. And then Drive-Thru-RPG said, "Oh, you've, said this about us," and no, we never said that. It's kind of a hot mess. But I don't know what, Yes, Fatal was the one with the bizarre circumference rules. Yes. You heard that Fatal was supposed to be an overly done prank that never got printed. No, it got printed. There were people who had actual physical copies of the book. Yes, RPG Grandma. That is the one I was referring to. I have only just kind of started to dig into it because I was doing lots of other things this weekend. But anyway, so you're better off having never heard of Fatal, Light Main. Just, I don't want to tell anyone to do this, but if you like everything, you can find it on the internet if you're that interested. No, that's okay, Danny. We have to warn people about it. Need a copy of Macho Women with Guns. We talked about what was probably the progenitor of Macho Women with Guns not too long ago. Can I find that PDF again? Let me see. This was published in Murphy's Rules in Space Gamer, the Fantasy Gamer, back in the day. Kung Fu CB Mamas on Wheels versus the Motorcycle Aztec Wrestling Nuns. Steve Jackson Games printed up a fake errata sheet and a fake character sheet for this non-existent, completely absurd sounding role-playing game and said, "Hey, you want to have some fun? Print these out and scatter them around the next convention you go to. Like if you find a vacant table, just put these at like every place." Wave needs a ruling, not rules tattoo. I need that tattoo, Jimmy. So yeah, that was in Space Gamer, Fantasy Gamer, all the way back in 1984. That's 40 years ago. Good Lord. Well, 39 in Holden. Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah, we did the whole Murphy's Rules deep dive read through. Somebody had suggested or asked or recommended or demanded, I don't remember last week, about something we might dive into this week, but I can't remember what it was. If it comes to mind, we'll do that. But tomorrow night, after a little bit of preamble ramble, guess what? Let's play some first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Wednesday night, we're going to let's play some Classic Traveler. That is actually going to be run by my co-host, Kyle Schuant. Thursday night is open bar. Thirsty Thursday, BYOB. Put your feet up, and we'll get into some fun. Friday night, we'll have a little bit of this, but then at 9:00, we're going to play some Classic Traveler and Classic Gamma World. Bleh. Thank you, Dungeon Minister. I had it on the charger all day. Looking forward to your upcoming BECME campaign. You're going to be running for mainly 5e players. I'm going to love the fact that none of them will be able to do any rules lawyering. Oh, don't you believe it? Rules lawyers are born, not made. And believe me, if the system exists, there will be people that can rules lawyer it. You can find people who will rules lawyer tic-tac-toe. 50-50 if the Traveler campaign isn't going to end on a spectacular TPK. Who knows? Kennick says, Olivia Newton-John is my favorite Aussie. Well, Kyle is my favorite Aussie. And then there's, a short list under that. Looking forward to Classic Traveler. Been loving that stream. Yes, I put 2 and 2 together, Mark, and welcome to the Discord. I'm just getting caught up on y'all's messages. Yeah, but Piadar, that just makes some rules lawyer harder. I demand you explain that to me. Give me the whys and wherefores. I want to see that. Let me see the rule book. You got to watch out for that. That's right, Van. You can die in class. Here's the thing about dying in classic character generation, or in character generation in Classic Traveler, rather. Most people do it because they have characters that end up old and they just keep pushing more terms in the military. That's where you die. It's not like, okay, roll 2d6 for your strength. All right, I got an 11. Ha, you die. That when you get to military terms, then you start rolling dice on what happens to you every term. The longer you stay in the military, the greater the odds are that you die in something, whether it's combat or whatever. But yes, I mean, it can happen. It can and does happen. I mean, there's a whole meme shirt. It looks like the Classic Traveler book 1. It's got the very plain font, the black and red, and underneath, instead of saying book 0, whatever, underneath it says like your character will die during character creation or something like that. By the time GDW got around to Twilight 2000, it's just rads. Like, you can wind up with a hopelessly sick character in Twilight 2000. And that's right off the bat. That's not because you're like, no, I just keep staying in. Because, yeah, Twilight 2000 is a very grim game. There's nothing happy happens in Twilight 2000. Do I think it would work? Death occurs at negative con score. I'm assuming that you mean like if you have a con of 18 and you're dropped down to -1 and nobody tends to you and you bleed out to negative 18 hit points, then you're dead. Is that what you're saying? If that works for you, then go for it. Then absolutely go for it. Nuns with guns are the sisters of battle. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I myself wouldn't do it just because I have my mechanics already. But if you kick off the game and you apply that stringently across the board for PCs and NPCs, and even for important monsters, then do so. I've seen some people who said negative hits. Like you have 30 hit points. If you're dropped down to negative 30 hit points, or, you know, if you're dropped all the way down to negative 25 hit points, but not negative 30, you're still fine. So you do that. But do it evenly across the board. T2K, where you get such asides from players. This is where Hannah commits a war crime. Yeah. Your DM used -10. Yeah, and I mean I use -10, but with the options that I mentioned. Just be consistent in what you do and understand what you're altering. And this is a big thing. Kyle and I will beat on the pulpit over this one. When you change a rule particularly in AD&D, everybody's like, hey, AD&D is fast and loose. You can change stuff. It doesn't matter. AD&D is not a loose rule system. AD&D is a very tightly integrated rule system surrounded by very loose discussion about the rules. And a lot of people misconstrue that. Like, well, I did away with paying to level and training and all of that. But man, my characters all have millions of gold pieces. Well, and it's here, of course, because you guys knew that I would invoke this, right? There is something very important, and this is all you need to know. If you never played AD&D, and some of you people who come to my live streams, some of you folks who have come to my live stream, please understand this. This is so very, very, very important. In fact, I'm going to put this up on the screen while I read it. I've done it before. I've shared this before, time and again, and I'm going to share it with you now because it is super duper important. It is the spirit of the game, not the letter of the rules, which is important. Never hold to the letter written, nor allow some barracks room lawyer to force quotations from the rulebook upon you if it goes against the obvious intent of the game. As you hew the line with respect to conformity to major systems and uniformity of play in general, also be certain that the game is mastered by you and not by your players. Within the broad parameters given in the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons volumes, you are creator and final arbiter. By ordering things as they should be, the game as a whole first, your campaign next, and your participants thereafter, you will be playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons as it was meant to be. May you find as much pleasure in doing so as the rest of us do. It is the spirit of the game, not the letter of the rules, which is important. Exactly, Lightmane. It is the Dungeon Master's Guide. No, I think you're right, RPG Grandma. I think a lot of people, and you know, and it's a shame because they shouldn't. Let you guys sort that one out. No, but the thing about it is, the thing is, you know, the DM is there to be the cold and implacable universe. All right. I personally think it is my opinion that you short the players, you deny the players a fun opportunity to overcome the most fiendish of game plots. When you stop being a referee, when you stop being the cold, implacable universe, and just become a collaborative storyteller. Now, look, if that's your jam, if that's what works for you, it's your table, God bless you, go in peace. But really, for the grittiest, roughest, toughest, and in my opinion, most rewarding D&D experience, you have to embrace the afterword to the first edition AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide. You have to. You have to. And that's just, you know. Mike Stewart, hola, good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Yes, exactly, Jimmy. Tomb of Horrors is a great exemplar of that. And you know, one of my favorite video games of all time. In fact, I'm doing a run through right now of the TNT maps for Doom 2. John Romero was a huge fan of first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. His favorite module, if you've ever wondered why, like you open a door and oh, there's a cyber demon. John's favorite module was Tomb of Horrors. There's only one place in the entirety of Doom 2 where you literally just every weapon is laid out before you. Yeah, it's RPG Grandma, definitely. But Romero understood the necessity of teasing the player along, even in Doom 2, with promises of ever greater rewards. Explore for a while, even if you've wiped out every monster on the map. Are you sure there's not a BFG 9000 hidden behind a secret wall? Have you checked everywhere? When you walked through one room, didn't you hear that mechanical sound of a door opening and you turned around and all the walls were shut? Wouldn't you like to go back and check that? But he never, just like you don't, you start the game with a pistol. If you explore just a little bit, you can get the chainsaw. If you run through the map and you don't take any risks, you'll leave the first level with a pistol. You won't get any good weapons beyond the pistol until you get to the second map of Doom 2. And that is something that John Romero, I cannot help but think he brought forward from his experience playing first edition AD&D. You just have to bring people forward a little bit at the time, every time, so they can they can revel in their triumphs. I mean, when you finally figure out, okay, all right, I run over the demon face tile. That causes that lift to lower. If I just sprint straight for it, taking a little damage from the lava floor, and I get on it, it raises up. I can throw the switch, then run off the edge and jump onto the platform that slowly raises, and then I get the megasphere. Then I get the extra hit points. Slowly progressing through. I mean, I think it's will there be a tabletop triumph video this week? Yes, there will. There will be a tabletop triumph this week. But you're rewarded by exploration. You're rewarded through trying stuff out, and that's how it is in AD&D. And that's just how I feel about it. That's just how I think AD&D really shines. Now, my favorite module is probably not Tomb of Horrors. It's actually probably Keep on the Borderlands. Yeah, it was a slow news day, Lightmane. Like I said at the beginning of the show, 72 whole hours went by and Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro didn't do something stupid. So I had really nothing going on, nothing to say. The you can't beat the G series. The G series is phenomenal. I really hope to run that for my Monday night group. I'm playing AD&D in about 15 more minutes. I gotta hop off and go do that. So do you guys have any questions, any further questions for me tonight, this Monday night, when we talk about classic RPGs? Anything around here you'd like to discuss? Just ask away. I'm here. I'm here for you. Isle of Dread was definitely a good one. We did a deep dive a few months ago on Keep on the Borderlands. I mean, it is hands down one of the best. Teaching D&D with B2. That's it. African or European, Danny? Keep on the Borderlands or White Plume Mountain? Keep on the Borderlands, probably. I love White Plume Mountain, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's in that stack of awesome. That's like asking me what my favorite Led Zeppelin album is. They're all good. They're all good. There are no bad Led Zeppelin albums. Village of Hamlet is amazing. My take on Cyberpunk as a setting and Shadowrun in particular. Shadowrun's not to my taste. I had some fun playing Shadowrun a couple of times when I was in college. It's not my favoriteest thing in the world. Cyberpunk, I would probably take the core of R. Talsorian Cyberpunk, but then do a lot of homebrew. I would definitely change up, like the humanity cost system has got to go. I don't agree that you become a monster if you need a leg replacement. 3. Todd, the answer is 3. How would I sell old school games to someone who's used to the overpowered 5e? Just invite them to play. Because I'll promise you this, when I have run classic AD&D as store events, and people come to sit down and play, there's a little bit of, wow, I've never played AD&D or first edition or original D&D, and they sit down to play. 30 minutes in, they don't care. I have never had someone walk away from an AD&D table saying, that sucked. It was nothing but talking about the fun that they had playing it. They're convinced it's a game where you're going to die and is excessively lethal. Lead by example. I have played second edition. I do not run it, Big Yehuda. I don't own any 2E stuff. I mean, honestly, AD&D and OD&D sell themselves. Once people realize that they don't need to be like this for 45 minutes of every hour that they play, they're in love with it. You mean I can just run across the room and dodge people as I go? Yeah. You mean I can just say I parry? Yeah. I don't I don't have to worry about a skill. Nah. The games I host, are they limited to Patreon members, or how does one... Do you mean the game that I host, like when I go and I do events? Or are you talking about the live stream stuff that I do? Michael Connor, Hail Lobster, unbreaded. And he's a crab, by the way. You've been saying Hail Lobster. He's a crab. You know that. Are the rules simpler in first edition compared to 5e? They're different. They're different, and they balance. I don't mean balance as in game balance. I just mean they rest on different spots. I mean, to compare it, dude, that's like... that's like a big block 400 versus a modern day 4-cylinder engine. They're just different beasts altogether. live stream stuff. No, those aren't just for Patreons. I mean, I will say that if your conception is that, you know, your character will have skills for everything, and you look down and you see their skills for nothing, then your immediate impression might be, I can't do anything. So you might think it's harder, but it's not, I can assure you. I can assure you. And by the way, guys, I forgot to mention this in the beginning of the stream, and I apologize unremittingly for that. I feel terrible, but I just want to point out that this live stream is brought to you by our friends at Hellebarde Games. Hellebarde Games makes the modules that they'd like to play, whether it's for Castles and Crusades, 5th edition, or any OSR rule set. Old school is in play at the table, and you can check them out on their website at hellebardegames.com or pick them up on DriveThruRPG. We love us some Hellebarde Games. Round of the Delver's Dungeon. Plains Drifter, Minnesota, no 2E and no Time of the Dragon box set. Sorry, no. And this is something I talked to Gary about once upon a time, because I asked him point blank, I said, you know, when AD&D was rolling, did you look at the games that were coming out that were skill-based and say, I wish we had had a skill system? And he said, no, because it is assumed in AD&D that you can ride a horse, swim, climb a tree, catch a fish, make a snare to find a rabbit, fix your shoes, that sort of thing. It is an avatar-based game, and I've always embraced that. You want some Call of Cthulhu this year? Yes, there will be Call of Cthulhu this year with a big old asterisk. With a big old asterisk. For those of you who don't know, in October, we started this back in 2022. But in October, we will run a Call of Cthulhu campaign for the month of October every Friday night, supplanting Classic Gamma World. I may move that to Thursday nights, and here's why. Or one game I will move to Thursday nights, I should say. My friends here, so many of you folks have done this for me, that to launch into the hows and whys and wherefores would take another hour of me just pouring out my thanks. Are sending me to GaryCon. Now you say GaryCon is at the end of March, Bill. What has that got to do with Call of Cthulhu in October? The same group is also footing the bill for me to travel to Alabama to watch Alabama play Arkansas, which is, of course, on Saturday, which means I will travel Friday, which would, of course, interfere with the show and everything else. So one of the games in October, I think in late October, we'll do on a Thursday rather than on a Friday. I will do no such thing, Todd. That 4-session that it worked out quite nicely. It worked out quite nicely, Mike. Roll Tide, Danny. So yes, Call of Cthulhu will return this Hollows season. Oh, Orbital. You plainsman, huh? That's awesome. Yeah, I had them all eaten by Niogtha. Well, not all of them. One of them was confronted by a zombie, and the zombie forced a copy of, was it the Revelations of Glaaki, I think, or Divermis Mysteries that it gave him. So he'll go insane reading that. He survived. The others went up the side. I sent them to Bouvet Island, which if you Google that or look it up on Wikipedia, Bouvet Island is, that's awesome, Orbital. Bouvet Island is the most remote and desolate spot on the planet Earth. You are as far from any civilized anything as you can be. Like, you think like the deep jungle in the Amazon? No. I mean, you're like, a few weeks hike to civilization, and you will probably find some sort of tribal settlement long before you are in any serious quote unquote danger. Newfoundland, around Hudson Bay, no, you're fine. Greenland, you're going to come on a weather station. Siberia, maybe. Bouvet Island is a tiny, tiny, constantly frozen island in the South Pacific, or other the Southern Indian Ocean, and it is utterly remote. You might as well. You are closer to the crew of the ISS if you were standing on Bouvet Island than you would be to anyone else. Put that into perspective. So the party travels to Bouvet Island, and this is in the 1920s because MacGuffin reason. And they go trekking up the side of the long dormant volcano there on Bouvet, and they found a cave and they went in it and all sorts of shenanigans. Well, Todd's player went insane because they found a guy trying to sacrifice another crew member from the ship to a great old one. Todd saw this, went insane, said, "We're going to save him. Pick him up." And they're like, he's not gonna make it like out of the cave. He's literally gonna, and it was just horrible. And they fled, but it was too late because of all the blood that had gotten spilled and the incantation had already been cast. Niogtha like oozed out of these holes in the wall and just sucked them all into like these foot diameter holes, and just it was fun. Jorge, ¿cómo estás? No, Pitcairn Island would, like, you, if I gave you a choice, Pitcairn Island or Bouvet, you'd be like, please Pitcairn, because there's seabirds to eat on Pitcairn. So yeah, it was good stuff. Well, we're about to wrap up here, guys. Hey, Ken. Hello. Good to see you. Thank you, everyone, for stopping in tonight. It was wonderful to see you all. Really appreciate the time. I'm going to scurry off and play some first edition AD&D now. Not on live stream, just hanging out with some friends. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for stopping in. Hope you will pop in again in the future. yeah, we'll be back tomorrow night. Like I said, little bit of preamble ramble, and then we'll jump right on in to first edition AD&D. We've got minis, we've got Dwarven Forge, we have a whole visual spectacle you guys will be part of. This is the international sign for visual spectacle. But yeah, we'll be there then, and if anything comes up, if somehow Wizards manages to do an of course, I'll be there with some news about it tomorrow. But until that time, of course, and as always, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. I love you all. I mean that. And I'll see you around. Peace.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere, in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around, some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.